Dagamaya Tamaso Maham Jyotir Gamaya Mrityormam Amritam Gamaya Avir Ahavir Maedi Rudra Yate Dakshinam Mukham Te Namaham Pahinityam. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Reach us through and through ourselves, and evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. So my subject this morning is, what is life? The controlling question here is, how did the Atman become the Jivatman? You know about the Atman, infinite, divine, immortal soul, becomes the Jivatman. Jiva there means living, a living being, a life form, which is born, eats food, metabolizes, grows, maintains homeostasis, reproduces, and dies. This is a life form. How did we fall into this human condition? How did we fall so far from our true nature? You and I are jivas. We're embodied souls. We're like the reflection of the sun in a drop of water. We're like the space in a pot. This feels that it's separate from the universal world space. We're like a tiny point of light that's hidden under a bushel of lives and lives of habits and wrong thinking. Like a bird that's flew around and flew into a cage, and there is flapping around, trying to get free, wanting to be free, but not knowing even that the door to the cage is open. We're jivas. Jiva is like a wave in the ocean that's forgotten, that's part of the ocean. And it's worried about looking at all those other waves moving here and there, big and small, trying to somehow maintain its position. And as jivas, we make karma, and we're subject to the great law of causation, which locks us into behavior patterns and conditioning, and so that we are not free. This is the human condition, may be best described by the Greek philosopher Plato in the allegory of the cave, which we've discussed in detail on other occasions. Let's keep that aside. Think of another allusion to our human condition, a favorite among philosophers, and that is the image of the absurd theater. Human life is like a drama in an absurd theater. You know, that's a genre of theater, which is it's tragedy, but it's kind of a sad humor. Think of something think of a play that's tragic but sadly humorous. And it's all about people who want something and who are looking for something and who want to find something in life, and they're looking in an empty box. And they're like someone who's looking to buy a mink coat in a 5 and 10 cent store. It's like someone who's fishing for trout in a mud puddle. Those are kind of absurd images. That is, seeking for the absolute in the relative, seeking for the eternal in the transient, seeking for that which is real in the unreal world of Maya. This is our condition. You'd think that the most obvious thing that we're searching for is just our own identity. You'd think it would be the clearest thing in the world to us. And yet we wander around asking our friends, who am I? What is my true nature? Seeking, looking for the subject somewhere in the objective world. That's an absurd condition. Like the eyes looking around, trying to see themselves. Or like a hand that's always reaching out and grasping for itself. Or like a dog who's running around in circles, chasing his own tail. This is the human condition. This is kind of philosophers. This is our philosophers looking at our life, human life. One of the favorite images that kind of captures the human experience is that old Greek myth of Sisyphus. Sisyphus was the king of Corinth. And, well, he ruled wisely and well, but he was known to have an unruly attitude towards the gods. Didn't have the proper reverence for the Greek gods. Zeus, for example, on one occasion, kidnapped the daughter of one of the main architects of the city, and the populace had accepted it, busy saying nothing. But Sisyphus mounted a bold protest, and he led a protest march against Zeus, the king of the gods, became very vexed and annoyed. On another occasion, he saw that the Lord of Death was stalking his whole kingdom, that people were dying everywhere. And he thought, I have to put a stop to this. And so he captured Death and put him in chains and threw him in the dungeon. And the Lord of the underworld, day after day, was seeing that he was getting no new souls, were dying, and was having all these vacant spaces. And so he complained to the gods. When Sisyphus, before he died, he informed his wife When I die, don't bury me. Please just leave my body by the side of the road in the marketplace. Which she did. And when he died, knowing this antipathy of the gods, he found himself in the netherworld. But then he sent up a plea, a request to Zeus. Oh, please let me, what I know that I'm now, I'm in this lower world, but please allow me just to return, just to bury, give me a decent burial. You see my body is just lying there by the side of the road. That's terrible. Yeah, well, that's very bad. So the Zeus granted him that permission to return, and he buried that body. But now he was again on the earth. He saw the sun was shining, birds were singing, so he continued to live, and continually vexing the gods. When Sisyphus did finally die, he was condemned to Tartarus, one of different terrible hells in the Greek mythology. And his punishment was to roll a great heavy stone up the mountain. And when it came to the top, it would sway back and forth, and just by its own weight, the stone would roll down to the bottom again. And Sisyphus is condemned to go down and roll it up again. The gods thought there could be no greater punishment than just meaningless labor throughout eternity. So it kind of makes us think about the human condition, the plight of the jiva. This is in this world of Maya. And there was another great king of ancient India. His name was Yayati. And he enjoyed life. He lived with great zest and enthusiasm. He was something of a hedonist. And he lived a long and happy life, enjoying all the pleasures of the world. And yet when he grew into old age, one day he realized that he was nearing death. And yet he still had such a desire to live and to enjoy his life. And he had 3 sons. So he asked his one of you sons change bodies with me so that I can live again. And the youngest son agreed. And so they arranged for the ritual. They sat down. They did their mantras and they did their meditations. And the soul of the young prince went into the body of the king, the old king. The king, Yayati's body went into the body of the prince. Pretty soon that prince in the old body was buried. And King Yayati, there he was, in a new, fresh, young body. He began to live and enjoy a second life. And he lived all that time with great enthusiasm. Time passed, years passed, until one day he found himself standing in front of the mirror. And he looked there and he saw that on his face were some wrinkles. And his hair was turning gray. And he realized as he looked into his heart that he still had so many unfulfilled desires. And that contrast between that old looking face and those still youthful desires, even after a whole second round of pleasure, filled him with a sense of vairagya and dispassion. And he recited there a famous verse, Najatu kama kama nam upabhogena shamyati havisha Krishna vartmaiva bhuyo eva bivardate. He says that self-fulfillment in life is never attained by satisfying desires. That in fact, through satisfaction of those desires, desire only increases the more, like fire when butter is poured upon it. So this is the human condition, the jiva, the embodied soul. But this is not the whole story, because there is a higher world. And if you think back, students of the Greek philosopher Plato, he had a famous image called the image of the dividing line. There's a horizontal line. There's a lower world and there's a higher world. There's the world of the absolute and the relative. The world of the one and the world of the many. The world of the real and the world of the unreal. The world of the permanent and of the changing. The world of perfection and of imperfection. The world of knowledge above and ignorance below. We call it avidya maya. That's the kind of our state, our condition as embodied souls. We live in avidya maya. Avidya means individual ignorance. We are subject to a belief. We believe, or we've come to be aware of the world and to believe that it's real. We've come to believe that we are separate selves. We're separate waves in the ocean. We've come to believe that the relative world, the material world of our experience, the world of the many, is different from the one. That the relative world, the material world, is different from God, from the ultimate reality, from the higher reality. So let's look at the higher world, the world of Vidya Maya. The world of Vidya Maya, that's the world above the dividing line. And we can think of Ishvara and the impersonal God who is the source of the universe, and from whom everything was created and is maintained, and it returns again in the Ishvara. And the Ishvara is the good, well, it's gross. This is a gross world. Then there's a subtle world. Then there's a causal space. There's three kinds of space. There's gross physical space. There's mental space. Then there's causal space. We call it Chidakasha, consciousness space in the universe, right? In the universe we're talking about, well, individual and the cosmos. In the cosmos, there's a gross cosmos, and there's a subtle cosmos. Then there is a causal world. And all of that, we're talking about above the horizontal line, we're talking about all of the world of the real, vidya, maya. It's like a period, this is knowledge. And this knowledge is organized like a great pyramid, it goes up into the Chidakasha. At the top of that pyramid is the divine, uncreated, eternal words of the Veda, the eternal words of scriptures which were never created, that exist independently of space and time. In that world of the Chidakasha, there also exist the souls of gods and goddesses and archetypes, and, in fact, of all of the human souls. We also have a soul. We're also personal gods. And our soul exists in that higher realm beyond space and time. And that's the world of vidya, of higher knowledge. We could call it the spiritual world. The spiritual world where all of the laws of the universe, the spiritual laws, the laws of physical, natural laws, and spiritual, moral law. Those laws exist in that higher realm of that consciousness space. That's where exist all of the laws of logic and the laws of mathematics, and where exist numbers and sets of numbers, and abstract objects have their souls in this higher realm. This is the world of the Platonic forms, the forms which are eternal. For that form is what makes us what we are. The matter is what forms the matter that makes us who we are. Those are eternal, permanent, eternal Platonic forms. They're universal, they're necessary, and they are certain in all possible worlds. This is the reference of all, and we say this higher world, by the way, is not outside of ourselves, it's within us. That is, we also live in that higher world. In fact, we every time that we speak, when we speak about something, we refer to those ideal forms in our thought and in our psyche. That is, the images of these forms are deep in our psyche. And it's those things that we refer to. So that's why we can look at a chair. We can say, yeah, that's a particular chair. It's a name and its form. It's continually changing, and it's unreal. That is, it's impermanent, and yet there is an eternal chair. There's an eternal concept, an idea, or form. And somewhere in that higher world, there is an eternal you. There is a real, ideal you. Swami Vedarupananda discusses in Balboa Park, Inspired Talks, discussing on this subject. Somewhere in that world is an eternal you, where you exist right now. That's where you exist now, deeper at a level. See, we're using analogy here, which you think may get confusing, but it's not confusing. But we're speaking of higher, right? Higher worlds. They're also inner worlds. That is, they're deeper also worlds. But you are in that world. You are a disembodied intelligence. Overlayments of all these upadhis on top of this pure intelligence. That's your true nature. Now just imagine. Now let's ask our question. How did the Atman become the Jiva Atman? We can imagine that, let me tell you a story about the story of the Sankhya philosophy, who explains how this happened. One day, a disembodied intelligence who is perfect and infinite and divine immortal soul was standing there on the balcony of heavenly world and looking down. And as he looked down is all darkness. But as he looked and looked, he saw some twinkling lights. And he became interested in those lights. And he looked at them more closely, and there he saw there emerged houses and buildings. And it was kind of like a carnival. And he looked closer and became fascinated with what he was seeing. And there he saw the rides and all the people down there and the music. Like this, he's thinking about it. That was his first mistake, because it tells us in the Bhagavad Gita in the 2nd chapter, whenever you think about sense objects, you become attached to them. As a result of that attachment, this divine immortal soul, just a thought came into his mind, I think I'd like to visit that world. And so, he flew down on a beam of light, and there he materialized in the world. But because he was just disembodied intelligence, he kind of materialized as a crippled man, because he couldn't move, because spirits can't move. They just, they don't have arms and legs. So he was a crippled man. And he looked around and he thought, how am I going to enjoy life here in this world? This is the story told by the Sankhya philosophers. How am I going to enjoy the life in this world? Looked around there, he saw by the side of the road a blind man. And he was a man of firm body and everything, but he couldn't see. And so the crippled man went over and said, look, you're blind, I'm crippled, If I get up, do you mind, why don't we team up? You and I climb on your shoulders, we would make a good couple. I'll go around, tell us where to go, what to do, and you can go everywhere and do everything. And so they made a pact, and so they began to live. That is, the Atman became the Jivatman. He became a living soul. You may say, well, that's a silly story. But the fact is, here we are. So how do we explain it? The Hindu philosophers give another explanation. Similar. Lord Vishnu was one day in his heaven of Vaikuntha. And he was the Lord, the King of the gods, maintaining the whole universe. That was his job. And one day, he began to become bored with his kingly duties. And he began to think of the worlds over which he ruled. And he began to think about the earth. And as he looked down with his clairvoyant vision, he got kind of zeroed in. on a farm. There was a farm, and he zeroed in on this farm, and he's looking at the farm, and he's interested in everything. And like this, he's kind of fascinated with this, all that he's seeing and that's coming into his imagination. And there he sees a pig there. He's in the barnyard. And he thought, you know what? I wonder what it would be like to be a pig. And so he just teleported on an impulse, teleported down, and he came into the body of the pig. And there he was. And he began to live as a pig in the barnyard. And he was so happy. During the day, he would just lie there and bathe in the sun. And if he got too hot, he'd just go over and he'd wallow in a mud puddle. And like that, time passed, and he was so happy, and days and weeks and months, years passed, and the gods, meanwhile, looking at this, what has happened? What's happened to Vishnu? And so they sent emissaries down here, please, coming to plead with that pig form. Vishnu said, oh, I am perfectly happy here. I'm enjoying my life. It'll go away like that. They couldn't convince him. Finally, the gods, the whole of the universe was beginning to come unraveled. So they went to approach the great Lord Shiva. Please come and help us. And so Shiva descended from heaven and saw the predicament there, and there he stood with his mighty trident, and he smote that pig body, and the pig body was just there, and it split open, and out of that body came Vishnu, laughing, one looking around, and with great laughter at the good humor of the whole thing, he flew back into the heavenly world. A story of the Puranas, Indian Puranas. Do you think that Vishnu died? No, Vishnu didn't die. It was only the material body of that pig. That is as the Christians are fond of the saying, as Ramaji used to say, that they refer to this Christian saying. When Christian theologians, the old man must die. Spiritual life, the old man must die. What is the old man? The old man, of course, in Christian mysticism, refers to the natural man. The natural man is the man who's prone to sin and to pursue worlds of pleasure and sense pleasure and ego gratification. It's the natural man, is what Sri Ramakrishna would call the worldly man, preoccupied with sense pleasures and worldly pleasures. What Vedanta philosophers maybe would call the ego mind. This is the old man must die. That is, we have to die and to be, as it were, reborn again. And so then we find that we have to leave that the lower world, and to return to the higher world, to the spiritual nature, to our true spiritual nature. And this is why now we can answer this question. What is life? You see, life is not just a short interim between our birth and our death. This is not just physical life. It's not just our own mental chapter in a story. That's also transient. But our soul, our ideal self, our true self, that is our Atman, is eternal and immortal. As long as we are in this lower world, it's characterized by the Lord Buddha, life. What is life? Well, Lord Buddha explains to us what is life, summarizes it all very nicely. All is suffering, all is transient, and all is empty. This is why Patanjali, in the second chapter of the Yoga Sutras, advises spiritual aspirants to give up clinging to life. These are the kleshas, right? Ahimsa, jnana, smita, raga, dvesha, abhinivesha. Desire, fear, and clinging to life. Patanjali says, why shouldn't we cling to life, that is the pleasures of life and worldly life? Not because life is worthless. It's not for that reason. It's because life is not the short interval that we think it is. Life is eternal, immortal being, captured in a little drop of water. And this is why they say the old man must die so that the new man can be reborn and to live that eternal life. That is the life of the spirit, the life which is unlimited, eternal, an immortal being. So that's our subject this morning. Do we have the time here?
We have time for questions. Yes, we have plenty of time for questions.
Okay. Is there any question or commentary or not? We don't have to ply you with questions. If you have a question about Vedanta or about our subject, some general subjects.
I have a question.
Yes. Okay.
So, or a question of sorts. So, we talk about real. What is real? Maya and illusion and things. But Swami Vedarupananda on his deathbed said Brahman is real and the world is real, which is a toughie for me in some ways, because I tend to think of Maya as illusory things. So, what do you think, Swami? What do you think that Swami meant by saying Brahman is real and the world is real?
Well, what did he mean when he said? Well, as you say, the world you're raising like these huge, vast philosophical questions. What is real? What is unreal? What is true? What is the absolute? What is relative? The bottom line of teaching is, what is your question? I want to answer your question exactly your question.
My question is, what did Swami Vedarupananda mean when he said Brahman is real and the world is real too?
Answer, I don't know. I don't know what he meant. But I do know what Vedanta teaches us. I do know what Vedanta teaches us. And that is that Brahman alone is real and the world is unreal. And that you are Brahman. That's the bottom line. The world is unreal. That's the whole idea of Maya. Now, if you don't like the world, if you don't like the idea of Maya, and if you reject the whole philosophy of Vedanta, then I don't know what he would say by real. On the other hand, of course we know what he meant by real. He knows, he's saying what the world is real. I say the same thing every day. The world is real. Brahman alone is real. I say the same thing. Brahman alone's real. You're all real. I said, how can that be? I'm contradicting myself. But I'm like Swami Vedarupananda. Yeah, you're all real. He's saying the world is all real. don't get sidetracked by these sentences, that kind of a sentence, you say, from your fundamental teaching of Vedanta. The fundamental teachings of Vedanta are thousands and thousands of years old. But the idea, those words, the world is real. Those are sweet words to our ears. That's that ego loves those words. Somehow, maybe it's true. Maybe we can change the philosophy. So yeah, the world is real. No, you can't. Sorry. You interpret it as every way you choose, Swami Vedarupananda or whoever. Any other questions?
I was going to say, in reference to what Abhay has said, there is an example that Sri Ramakrishna gave also in similar, that when he goes to Samadhi, that the pure superconscious state, he gave the example of the floor, the ground floor being the world, and the ladder going all the way up and then reaching the top, the roof, which is the superconscious.
Yeah.
He said that I saw that this Maya is like the ground floor, and this Maya is made of cement and lime and brick.
Yeah.
Then I climbed the ladder and I reached the roof and I am in a but then again I realized that even that is also made of that same...
Made of the same material.
Material.
Right.
So does this have something is it related to what Swami Vedarupananda meant at the time? That maybe that way, that although, but because Brahman has created Maya too. So that way there is a connection between Brahman and Maya. Although Brahman is more permanent and Maya is like always in a flux and changing.
You see, these are like crazy thoughts.
Okay.
You see, you can't say that Brahman is real and the world is unreal, but they're both real. You see, that's what you're saying. You know, you got to be this is like logical thinking. Otherwise, we get into craziness. See, don't think like that. Brahman alone is real. The world is, if the world is changed, if the world is Brahman, of course, Vedanta, we teach all this is Brahman, right? Okay, the world is Brahman. So yeah, the world is real. But what about the many? The names and forms and the manyness is not real. That's unreal. That's Maya.